Hi, everybody. I'm Marlene van Rooyen from Building and Decor, and I am very happy to be here today with John Matthews. He is the chairperson of the Construction COVID-19 Rapid Response Task Team. This represents a huge body of organizations in the construction industry. He's going to talk to us a little bit more around the President's announcement on Sunday night about moving to level 3 and what that means for the construction industry. Welcome, John. Thank you for being with us today on such short notice.
Thank you very much, Marlene, and thank you for the opportunity to issue some points of clarity from the Rapid Response Task Team perspective. I represent, I'm the chairman of that task team, and I've been tasked with trying to facilitate that process. But I also wear another hat, and that's President of Master Builders South Africa, that represents all the master builders within the country, the different regions, and then obviously all the employer body, all the employers that belong to MBAs. So that's probably the key from my perspective in terms of trying to understand the contractor's perspective. Because I think the announcement on Sunday was very, very good news indeed. I mean, we have been lobbying tirelessly for the last 2 months to convince government to open up the construction industry, because besides it being a catalyst, the real challenge that we had and we are still having is the people on the ground. I mean, we know that the people on the ground have earned no money in the last 2 months. I know the UIF has provided some, but with huge challenges. And I mean, that's a different debate to get into in terms of the struggles we've had as employers to get money and funding out of the UIF. But be that as it may, I think we are now in a position. We've been lobbying for two and a half weeks, not 2.5 months. We've been lobbying very hard to convince the government, because if you recall, when the initial presentation was made by the president with regards to the levels, the level 5 on the 1st of May, it was understood that we were in level 5 when we started this thing way back in March. On the 1st of May, we then went down to level 4. And in that level, there was very limited, very, very limited construction in terms of civil engineering and then all the public works as well. And then when that table was published, it was very clear in there to say that there will be commercial projects in level 3 and there will only be residential projects in level 2.
Yes.
Now, our concern was, myself being a residential developer, was very concerned because I don't know what the distinction was, and we couldn't get to the bottom of understanding why is a commercial project more important than a residential project, because as a residential developer, I'm still a commercial entity. And there was a complete confusion around that. Anyway, we did a lot of work on that. We spent a lot of time on lobbying and convincing government. And at the end of the day, the good news on Sunday came that all construction will be open, starting with level 3. I must add, that is despite the fact that we're also having hotspots. And we need to be well aware of that. We must not ignore the hotspots. And for obvious reasons, the hotspots sort of hovers around the more urban areas, as we know. In saying that, I think it's also important to understand that now that we have got the green light, so to speak, that the industry is open, I think with that comes huge responsibility from us as employers, as well as the employees. But I want to concentrate on the employers for a minute, because to be able to open, we will have to exercise and practice and implement the health and safety regulations that are going to be laid down to the industry. Now, in that arena, the Rapid Response Task Team have also been actively working hard, preparing, putting guideline proposals to the government, and we've made our submissions to government for those guidelines. They have not been published yet, but we all know what the basic rules and regulations would be. And I would encourage everybody to start preparing yourselves. Don't come to work on Monday and you haven't got your sprayers and you haven't got your gloves, you haven't got your temperature readers, and you haven't measured the people, and you are not keeping record. The last thing you would want is for your business to open on Monday and on Wednesday to close. We've seen the conditions that the mining has been under, having to open and close, and that costs a lot more money than just getting yourselves ready in a proper manner.
Let's talk money. Now that you mention it, do you have an idea of, well, the loss that we've incurred in the construction industry in the past 2 months? As we mentioned earlier, the construction industry wasn't exactly booming before this happened, but we stopped dead 2 months ago. Do you have an indication of how much it cost the economy and in terms of job losses?
I don't, but I do know, I don't think we will ever be able to measure that accurately, because we seem to be just measuring the bigger companies and the bigger projects. Are lots and lots of smaller projects, formal and informal, if you want to call it, that is just not being recorded or not tagged in some way or the other to understand the massive impact. I mean, I know the last statistics quoted was more than 1,000 jobs lost, and there was some real millions and billions of money. I cannot quantify it for you. What I do know is, at the end of the day, people haven't been earning money. And that's probably the most important thing. We on the, let's call it, we on the management side, we have got cushions. You know, we have got cushions that we land on. There are little parachutes that we make provision for. But our employees on the lower level, that is hand-to-mouth living. The informal sector that we have, that was being serviced by the building industry as well, have not traded at all. And even the formal sector of employees. I mean, I'm a member of the bargaining council here in the Western Cape as well, and we know that that has been traumatic for employees. Firstly, not earning money, and secondly, not being able to get money from the UIF because of the incompetence of the UIF and the challenges that they've had. And, you know, it could have been easier if they at least communicated. And that is part of the challenge. There is just no communication, and that is very sad. My company included have up to today still not received the funding that they were supposed to from the UIF. Some of us, and most of our employers have been paying our people the little bit that they could, but that's not sustainable. They have to get that sorted out very quickly.
Yeah. How do you foresee the industry opening up? I was talking to a contractor last week before this announcement, and he mentioned it would take him roughly 3 weeks to open up. I think that a lot of the contractors were imagining they would only go back in level 2. Do you see a logistical problem for them?
Absolutely. It's a huge logistical problem. And I would rather encourage people not to open up, to rather take the time to prepare yourself, because as I've said earlier on, don't start and you're not ready and you don't have the necessary PPEs and other things in place, and then think you're going to get away with it, because you'll get caught in terms of either breaking the law or a virus breaking out, or the contamination breaking out on your site, and then you have to close. Then you have to decontaminate again. And these things are going to happen. It's impossible to think that we all are going to be scot-free and we're not going to be able to get this virus. We have to deal with it. But the main aim of the process is to flatten the curve. And if you are not ready, and if you doubt that you're not ready, don't start. Rather, get yourself a professional in there. Make sure that they've done the checking mechanisms and they've ticked the boxes in terms of your requirements, and then start. I think you are absolutely right. I've just come out of a board meeting this morning, and I think everybody's excited to go back on Monday, but we're probably only going to be back in 2 weeks' time. We will be back with a limited staff. We will be back with, and that limited staff will have to implement PPE and put up the posters, do the sanitizing stations, do everything else, get your temperature measurements, your gadgets that you need. And all of that will probably take about a week. And then we'll take one step further, whereby even a roster needs to be drawn up as to what is the most critical work that needs to start, and then work from there backwards to say, okay, now we can start bringing all the other trades in. But it is not possible to bring your entire trade in, even though there is no limitation. It is just not possible. And I would encourage members, and I would encourage employers to even look at that from an office perspective. Don't suddenly bring the whole office back because you think it's going to be business as usual. make some very hard decisions and saying, let's get the core people back. Let's be ready. And perhaps for the first 2 or 3 weeks, alternate the staff so that you can get them used to the alternating, and make sure that most of your core business can do work from home, which most of us have been doing for the last 2 months.